Fruit changed my life. Before I found fruit, I had multiple cavities by the time I was like 12. Stuff I'm dealing with today, that's costing me thousands of dollars. I had a swollen lymph node in my neck the size of a golf ball that I was rushed to the hospital when I was 7. Yeah, 7. And when I was, I think 9, I was diagnosed with acute asthma. And so I had an inhaler and nebulizer. One night I woke up feeling like I was going to, my life was going to end, and I couldn't breathe. So I got rushed to the hospital, and I was like in the hospital for like 3 days, and my breathing was like this is at age like 9. I lived off like ramen. I was in the lowest 7% poverty. I lived off ramen and candy bars and Mountain Dew and hot dogs and real cheap processed crap, all the way up until fast forward until like age 18. My like 16 to 21, it evolved from alcohol, heavy weed use. Then it got into in my my 20 and 21 was the worst years of my life, when I ended up doing poly substances like synthetic shrooms, synthetic coke, snorting prescription meds, and mixed with alcohol and marijuana, and really unhealthy eating. Like I remember eating these prime ribs that were glazed with like super glazed and just super fatty and sickening. Heavy cigarettes as well. All that mixed together, I ended up ODing back to back, and I was very close to the end of my life. Like my throat was like sandpaper all the way down to my chest, basically. Imagine not being able to swallow and it's like literally feels like there's sandpaper all through your entire throat. Like your mouth, like your tongue like literally can't move, because it like you put your tongue, you just touch your tongue to the top of anywhere in your mouth and it gets stuck. It was a horrifying experience. And so after that, I began learning on YouTube all about wellness, and I didn't realize that there's a world beyond animal products, including meat, or aka flesh, putrefying flesh, decaying flesh, rancid flesh, and lactations of mammals that are developed to raise their babies to like 400 pounds. And humans drink this and eat it. And so I had major acne, by the way. I was using all these acne pads, these acne scrubs. Later did I find out that was the lactations, milk, cheese. That stuff oozes out in pus. That's the pus exiting your pores. And the fats, your greasy fats, your greasy fingers that you touch on screens and stuff, that stuff's from the fat from animal products. And so like your what do you call it? Dust is dead skin cells, and your hair falling out, that's all because your pores are clogged and your body's shedding and decaying itself because it's constantly just plugged up. All your capillaries, your veins, all this stuff that leads from your skin through your cardiovascular system is clogged. Mine was clogged. And so once I found out that there's a thing called raw veganism or raw foodism, I started to go down that path. people like Drew Canoli, Dan the Man, Life Regenerator. I started juicing. I bought a juicer. I started using superfoods like matcha and like kombucha and like dark chocolate, cacao nibs, and all this stuff. Later did I realize that superfoods are just other types of allopathy. Same with any type of food. If you use any food to, like Hippocrates said, food be thy medicine, that's bad. I later realized that all food, all substances, anything you use, and that's why most people end up in the realm of recreational drugs, because they're very similar. In many cases they're actually the derivatives or identical to prescription drugs. It's all the same. It's all allopathic. I later didn't realize that until I learned about natural hygiene. When I learned about raw veganism, I found out that the cooked food, which is almost everything on the planet, is cooked. This was invented from pasteurization from Louis Pasteur, which wasn't even a couple hundred years ago. Like most of the time before that, things were fermented and stored underground. Like fridges aren't even that new. And so herbalism was invented. Okay, I'm going off the rails here. This is supposed to be about me, but like I'm trying to give context of my journey. And so while I was learning about raw veganism, I moved to Santa Barbara, and I was trying to become a professional skateboarder. I was doing really well with exercise, but the problem is with the raw veganism is I still treated food as medicine. That's why I was using superfoods and juicing, and I was trying to get nutrition. I was trying to count all my calories and macros and micros and trying to make sure I get certain amounts of this and certain amounts of that. And it's all a balancing act, and it's not the right philosophical view. So I still smoked cigarettes. I got peer pressured into drinking again and doing weed. And I became poor again, so I started eating Ho-Hos, like 25-cent junk foods. All the while I was learning about raw veganism and I was also trying to do like juices and stuff. And later did I finally realize that there's another side of raw veganism, fruitarianism. And so there was this other guy named Doug Graham who wrote this book called 80-10-10, which is 80% carbs, 10% fat, 10% protein. And then I started going down a whole new rabbit hole with that. And so I heard him say, just eat fruit for 1 year, try it for 1 year, and if you don't like it, then stop. And I was hooked. I was like, okay, that sounds reasonable. So I went and bought a 30-pound box of bananas, and I started eating almost solely bananas. I was doing rice as well, and like I wasn't doing it perfectly because I was still poor, and I was trying to make ends meet at that moment. And I was splurging heavily on co-op foods, which were really expensive, and I wasn't really formed my whole belief yet about that. And so it turned out I lost my addiction to cigarettes immediately. I cut cold turkey. I didn't even have a single thought about cigarettes. I was chain smoking at that time. I didn't have a single thought about cigarettes for like 7 years later. It didn't even not even a thought. And so it just disappeared. That's how miraculous that was for me. And so I got the 20 seconds here. Fast forward, I miraculously met this dude. I moved to Arizona. He taught me about natural hygiene, which is the principles, practices, and philosophies of life science, which is all about the body heals itself. Nothing can heal it. So eat only fruit and water fast.